Hello everyone, welcome back to another Hearthstone video. As you may have seen by the title, I'm not doing a basics episode today. With the upcoming expansion and several of the older expansions rotating out of standard, I've decided that I'm going to make a video to pay homage to my favorite deck, that once the new expansion comes out and the old deck and the old expansions rotate out, I won't be able to play in standard anymore. I'm not a big fan of wild, so I've been trying to play this deck as much as I can since I won't be playing it much afterward. It doesn't look like this deck will be getting a whole lot of support, so I'm going to make a video on it now, pay homage, and I'll return to basics with the next video. So the deck that I'm talking about is called Exodia Mage. If I could pull it up. And anybody unfamiliar with what Exodia means, it's a set of cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! Where just having them in your hand wins you the game. So that's kind of the idea with this. There are a group of cards that if you just have in your hand and you have a certain condition met, you just get to win. And the cards that are important are Sorcerer's Apprentice. You need to have 4 of them, but you're only allowed to have 2 in your deck. So you have to have a couple of ways to get extras. And those ways are Simulacrum, which copies the lowest cost minion in your hand, so you can get copies of Sorcerer's Apprentice that way. There's also Molten Reflection, which makes a copy of a friendly minion. And then the last card is the legendary Archmage Antonidas. Whenever you cast a spell, you add a fireball to your hand. This includes the fireballs that he will then add to your hand. So you can, if you have 4 Sorcerer's Apprentices, fireballs cost 0, so you can just infinitely chain fireballs until your opponent has been defeated. So that is the whole gimmick to this deck. It uses the quest, the Mage quest from Journey to Ungaro, where you have to cast 6 spells that didn't start in your deck. You get Time Warp. Time Warp allows you to take a second turn in a row. So you have 1 turn to play out all of your Sorcerer's Apprentices to make sure you have them all there. You then play the Time Warp, which allows you to take a second turn. On that second turn, you'll play Archmage Antonidas, and 1 spell that with your Sorcerer's Apprentices is going to be cheap. And then you get your first fireball, and then you just start fireballing your enemy. So I'm going to play a couple of games, show off how the deck works, hopefully. I've had a little bit of bad luck playing this, so hopefully my luck has turned around, and I'll get a bunch of wins out of this. Shaman. Shaman named Dennis. That's funny. I happen to be a fan of the Hearthstone player Kripparrian. He calls players that don't do things correctly, he calls them Dennis. So I find it funny that I am matched up against a Dennis. Crap, and I can't use this anymore. No, I can. I'll just have to fix it in post. So, the nice thing about the quest is you always start with the quest in your hand. And unless you choose to mulligan it away, it will always start in your hand. And because I don't have to have the quest to win, but most of the times I do, I choose to go ahead and just keep it and play it on turn 1. I don't have much else to do on turn 1 usually. So another card that's really important to this deck is the Banana Buffoon. It adds 2 bananas to your hand. Bananas are 1 mana spells that give +1/+1 to a minion. 2 of them, that gives you 4 very cheap spells in your hand that you can, buff minions. You can also, it also counts towards your quest progression because they didn't start in your deck. And the one thing that's nice is you can see that the coin is highlighted in my hand right now. And that's because the coin doesn't start in your deck. So I get a free spell to count towards my quest completion for this. I really don't want that to get out of hand, but I don't know if I can do much about it right now. 7. I think I'm just gonna have to play a buffoon.
Oh, if you're sure.
If he has a bunch of overload cards, I could be... Okay. This could be bad. I guess that was a bad idea. Because he's got the healing totem, it's just going to heal it up. I should have just left it. Another overload card.
Interesting.
Yeah. With this deck, you don't have a whole lot of removal options. I do run 2 blizzards, which are fairly common in the deck, and that's just about all the removal you really have. The whole point to this deck is not necessarily to remove all your opponent's minions and survive until the end where you can do the combo. The whole point to this deck typically is to just draw your deck as absolutely quickly as possible, get the combo before you die, and pull it off as soon as you have the mana for it. But there's very commonly situations where you just have to stall as best as you can with whatever you do have. We also do have Doomsayers, but if your opponent has a bunch of stuff on the board, those typically don't survive. It does save you 7 health, usually, which can be a good thing. It can stall you just long enough to get your combo, but typically, if your opponent is getting a big board, typically you need it to do more than just save you 7 health. Typically you need it to go off and actually clear the board. And there are a couple of cards that I have that you have in this deck that do that, like there's Frost Novas, which freeze your opponent's entire board. Oh, look at that. Frost Nova.
Behold the tools of
And so,
creation.
completed the quest, and we have Time Warp. Time Warp literally just allows you to take an extra turn. So, one thing I'm hoping is that with Stargazer Luna allowing me to just, if I keep playing the rightmost card in my hand, I'll just be able to keep drawing and drawing and drawing and drawing. I'm hoping that he thinks that's important enough to get rid of that he'll actually get rid of it, and maybe even this card too, because this card gives me armor equivalent to the cost of any spell that I play. So that's why I have armor now. Ooh, Blizzard. That'll be good.
Frozen heart of the scourge. Chosen.
That card got a downgrade. Guess I'm pretty okay with this. So 5 mana. If I wanted a Frost Sayer,
Tremendous.
Frost Nova Doomsayer. So I'm gonna draw first. Always try and draw first if you're gonna end up doing that anyway. Okay. Frost Nova Doomsayer. So hopefully he doesn't have like a silence or something to go with this. But even if he does, I can still do something to potentially get a Doomsayer off.
I appreciate that. The elements are silent.
Let's see if he's gonna do any more evolving shenanigans. That looks like it.
Change your mind.
He's going to attack it instead of me, because it's just gonna go off. Okay. I'm totes okay with that. Totes okay with that. Okay. So as you can see, I have 1 Molten Reflection, 2 Molten Reflections, 1 Sorcerer's Apprentice. So I just need the other Sorcerer's Apprentice. And I am good to go. 9 cards in my deck. I'm just gonna throw a Doomsayer out because I can. Kind of just to keep him from trying to play anything too big since I'm so close to my combo. So 2, 4. So 2, 4, 6, 7. This will be 1, so 2 mana. Ooh.
The choice is mine alone.
If I draw my other Sorcerer's Apprentice using Research Project, I could still win next turn. Or if I just draw the Sorcerer's Apprentice off the top. Doomsayer, Intellect, and Simulacrum. Well, if I get the Sorcerer's Apprentice off the top, I just win. But I don't want to play too much else in my hand.
Interesting.
I could always force it with the Simulacrum. And then just wait until next turn. Because I don't think he can kill me next turn. Because 2, 4. This will be reduced by 2, so it'll be 2, so 6. Then it'll be reduced by 3 to make it 7.
Perhaps.
This will then cost 1, so 8. Yeah. I think I just wait till next turn and then I win.
Me no crazy. You're crazy.
And this is kind of the point to why it's called Exodia. I have nothing on the board, and this next turn I'm just going to play things from my hand and win. And there's nothing that he can really do about it. Oh no, my hero power.
Well played.
Someday I'll be just like you.
Thank you.
Someday I'll be just like you. Someday I'll be just like you.
Well played. Tremendous.
You require my assistance.
And we just chain fireballs until we win. And we win. And ta-da, we win. Oh, and I completed quest stuff too. So I'm just going to go back. We're going to look at this deck just a little bit and kind of talk about things about it that kind of make it one of my favorite decks. It's not exactly like my number one favorite deck of all time. That would be the old Freeze Mage. But Blizzard has been trying to cut down on the on having really cheap, really strong combos, which is what the old Freeze Mage relied on. Let's see if I can show you the card. Not standard. Oh. My bad. I'm going to have to switch to the actual My Collection button to show you. Where is it? Oh, switch to all cards. Ice Lance, this card. So, freeze a character if it was already frozen, deal 4 damage to it. That includes heroes. So, if you used a frost... wow, excuse me. If you used a Frostbolt... Did I pass it? Should be 2 mana. Wow, I just can't find things right now. Frost. Oh, that's why I can't find it. Because it's a basic card. Frostbolt. So if you use this card on the opponent hero, it would freeze them. So then you could use another one. So you'd do 6 damage with the 2 Frostbolts. And then the 2 Ice Lances did 4 damage each. So it was a 14 damage combo. And then they would often pair it with... you have to go to neutral. Alexstrasza, which 9 mana card, sets a set of heroes remaining health to 15. So you would use this on your opponent, set them to 15 health, then you would have a 4 card, 2, 4, 6 mana combo that did 14 damage, you then needed to just do one more damage from any source, including your hero power, and you could just beat them, unless they managed to heal the turn you played Alex, or the turn after you played Alexstrasza, or if they gained armor. And then the whole other point to that deck was it was just filled with freeze cards. So that way you'd stall out the game. Things like Ice Lances. It used to run Flame Cannon when that was still a card that you could play. Mana Worm used to be 1 mana. There were some that would run it because it was a good way to help fight against aggro. Snow Chugger was good because, again, it was an early card that you could play, and if you happened to have it on the board when you had your combo ready, it was you'd attack your opponent and they would get frozen, so you wouldn't have to have a Frostbolt to start the Ice Lance. And it was also a good card to fight off against aggro. And this was a deck that was around at the very beginning of Hearthstone, so there weren't as many of these cards available. All mages at the time used Ice Block. This is now a Hall of Fame card, so you can't use it in Standard anymore. You'd use Ice Barrier as well. These were both very good stall cards. This card was kind of busted. It's a secret. When you take damage that would kill you, you prevent it and become immune for that turn. And you could have 2 of these in your deck. So you just had cards devoted to keeping you alive for 2 extra turns. And that was typically enough to stall you to win most games. I think most of the freezing cards are actually basic cards, which is why I'm not seeing them. Frostbolts were used. Arcane Intellects, always trying to draw more. Frost Nova, to freeze all your opponent's enemies. A lot of them would run Fireball because the main combo that does 14 damage costs 6. So then it slots a Fireball in perfectly if they healed for enough to get them back up to 20 health. Playing a Fireball finishes them off still, and it makes the combo 10 mana for 20 damage, which is really good. Cone of Cold is another freezing card that you would get, that you'd play. That was pretty good. Polymorph was usually at least a 1 of, if not a 2 of. Being able to remove a single target was really big. Blizzard is kind of always going to be a good mage card. It's good for stall, it's good for board clear. And there is one other card that some Freeze Mages would run, and that's Pyroblast. It used to cost 8 mana, which is why it was a run back then. It's typically not run anymore, because it's 10 mana, deal 10 damage, which isn't bad, but there are cheaper ways to deal more damage. Like 2 Fireballs does 12 and it costs 8 mana. So that's basically, that's how Freeze Mage worked. It's different than this one. This one is definitely, there's a lot more work that you have to put into it. This deck is a lot weaker to aggro decks, which is what I've been running into pretty much all of the time, which is why I said I was not having good luck with it, because everybody else is playing aggro decks right now. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope this was a at least halfway decent homage to Exodia Mage, which will be exiting standard format, at least for the time being. And if you liked the video, please go ahead and give it a like, subscribe if you'd like to see more of my videos, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.